tell you why I'm here today. One of the challenges that I've come to understand as I talk to young people and I talk to adults is that most of us are creatures of habit. We think in patterns and we act in patterns. Now, you might think to yourself, no, that's not true, but let me ask you some questions. How many of you in here know someone that has a routine every morning? They do things exactly the same way. I'll tell you my favorite one. How many of you in here, when you eat dinner at the dining room table, you have assigned seating? I mean, it's not really assigned, but everybody knows where they're supposed to sit. And by the way, if you want to have fun, sit in your daughter's chair. She will smack you. And one of the things I've come to understand is that as we work together with students and with professionals, if we're not careful, we fall into a trap that I call the trap of the unwritten rule. This year, as you work with students, as you work with your peers, as you work with folks at your university, every time that you try something, you go with unwritten rules. And today, what I'm going to ask you to do is to consider breaking some unwritten rules. Changing how you think, because how you think affects how you're going to act. Now, incidentally, I understand that for some of you this is going to be really easy. Every year I talk to students, they love change, they embrace change. But do you realize most of us hate change? We're creatures that like to do things the same way. Let me see if I can show you what I mean. And for this to work, I need your help. If you would just sit up straight where you are for a second, and just cross your arms like this. Okay. Now, if you look down at your arms, some of you have the left arm on top. Some of you have the right arm on top. Let me show you what change feels like. Uncross your arms. Now, cross them again and put the opposite arm on top. So, right, there's a young lady up here going like this. This is not working, okay. No, there is no correct arm to have on top, but there's one that you're comfortable with. And in a similar fashion, you have ways of looking at challenges and looking at life that you're comfortable with. And today, I'm going to ask you to consider breaking 3 unwritten rules. So that if you're not careful, you fall into what I call the unwritten rule of the impossible. Now, what that translates to is that you look at every activity, every event, and you immediately classify it. That's impossible. We can't do that. And the difficulty is that as soon as you have done that in your mind, whether it's possible or not, it becomes impossible. And the reason is because you've written that unwritten rule. This is a pretty good example of this because, you see, the reality is that it is possible to do it. I always like this. When I do this with college kids, I get someone that goes like this, Harry Potter? I'm like, no, it's not that. Okay. But listen carefully. And this is significant if you work with anybody. One of the problems that we have when we work with each other is that we say it's possible or impossible. And if it's impossible, we don't even try. The other difficulty is that for us it might be possible, and we misuse words. I'll tell you who's the worst at this. Math teachers. Anybody in here ever have a math teacher and they go like this? Today we're going to be studying algebra. This is really easy. Yeah. How many of y'all ever had a teacher that did that? How many of you noticed they lied? Okay. Here's the problem. When you're teaching stuff to students, or even within your union, you're going to say something like, this is easy. Well, there's 2 words that come into play. One is simple and one is easy. Now, the solution to this is not technically complex. It's simple. And I'll show you how to do it in a minute. But the difficulty is that just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. Conversely, you can talk to a physics professor that knows quantum mechanics, and he'll look at you and he'll go, oh, this is easy. And the point that I'm trying to make is a significant one, because as you teach, as you talk with people, you need to get them through the unwritten rule that it's impossible. And the only way that you do that is by working with them, showing them how to take a complex skill and break it down into simple steps. And then doing it over and over and over and over again. And here's what happens as you do that. Something that was difficult becomes easy. So the very first unwritten rule I'm asking you to break is the rule of impossibility.